Episode 5 of the Shards, titled Murder on the Dance Floor, takes the series into one of its most chaotic and unpredictable chapters yet. What begins as a night of dancing, jealousy, and teenage drama quickly turns into something much darker. Debbie is devastated. Susan continues to come out on top. Old tensions explode, and one familiar character makes a shocking return. But the biggest question after this episode is not simply who died or who survived. It is this. Did the trawler really strike again? Or is someone else using the chaos surrounding the killer to hide their own crime? The dance-off turns into a disaster. The dance-off is supposed to be a moment of fun and competition, but in true The Shards fashion, nothing stays innocent for long. Episode 5 uses the party atmosphere to bring together all the characters and their unresolved problems. Debbie's storyline is one of the episode's biggest emotional disasters. While everyone else is focused on the excitement of the night, Debbie finds herself dealing with humiliation and disappointment. Meanwhile, Susan somehow manages to get another victory, adding even more tension to the complicated relationships surrounding the group. The episode also brings back a character whose return immediately raises new questions. That return is important because the Shards has spent the entire season creating uncertainty about who is safe, who is lying, and who might already know more about the trawler than they are willing to admit. And then the violence begins. Cha-Cha's fate changes the entire episode. The shocking attack involving Cha-Cha is where episode 5 takes a much darker turn. At first glance, the answer seems obvious. Another violent incident happens while the trawler is terrorizing the group, so naturally everyone is expected to assume the serial killer is responsible. But this is where my theory begins. I do not think we should automatically blame the trawler for everything that happens in episode 5. The episode may be deliberately encouraging us to connect Cha-Cha's fate to the trawler because the killer's presence is already hanging over the entire story. But Cha-Cha also has personal conflicts and dangerous relationships that could give another character a reason to want her out of the way. That makes this death, or attack, different from the trawler's larger pattern. The trawler appears to thrive on fear, mystery, and psychological games. But a personal crime committed in the middle of all that chaos would be the perfect cover. Everyone would immediately blame the serial killer, while the real person responsible could disappear into the crowd. And that possibility could completely change the mystery. My main theory: there may be more than one threat. My biggest theory after episode 5 is that the trawler is not responsible for every terrible thing happening to Bret and his friends. The show has created an atmosphere where the characters and the audience are beginning to see the trawler everywhere. That is exactly what makes this theory so interesting. What if the killer's reputation has become the perfect weapon for someone else? Imagine committing a murder when a serial killer is already operating in the same area. You would barely have to hide the crime. The police, the students, and even Bret could immediately assume that the trawler did it. That means episode May 5th be setting up two completely separate mysteries. The first is obvious. Who is the trawler? But the second could be even more dangerous. Who is taking advantage of the trawler's crimes? Cha-Cha's fate could be the first major clue that these two mysteries are not the same. The returning character could be the key. The shocking return at the end of the episode changes the situation dramatically. Until now, the characters have been operating with limited information. People disappear, bodies are discovered, and Bret continues to suspect that something much bigger is happening around him. But the return of someone everyone believed was gone creates a completely new possibility. A survivor can provide answers. But they can also create even more questions. How did they survive? Did they escape? Were they released? And most importantly, what did they see? My theory is that this character's return was not random. If the trawler allowed them to survive, then there may be a reason. The killer could be playing a larger psychological game, deliberately leaving behind survivors to spread fear and confusion. But there is another possibility. What if the survivor escaped someone who is not the trawler? That would support the idea that another dangerous person is operating in the shadows. Why the trawler theory is becoming more complicated. Episode 5 is important because it makes the mystery bigger instead of giving us answers. The obvious suspect is still the trawler. The killer remains the biggest threat hanging over every character. But the episode also shows why Bret's obsession with finding the truth is becoming increasingly dangerous. Bret may be correct that something is wrong. He may even be closer to the truth than anyone realizes. But the more he connects every crime to one person, the easier it becomes to miss the possibility that multiple people are hiding secrets. And that is why this episode works so well. The trawler does not need to be responsible for every crime to control the story. The fear surrounding him is already enough. Other characters can lie, manipulate, threaten, and possibly even kill, while everyone is looking in the wrong direction. Episode 5 Review. Overall, Murder on the Dance Floor is one of the season's most entertaining episodes because it balances ridiculous teenage drama with genuinely disturbing consequences. The dance-off gives the episode plenty of energy. Debbie's devastation brings emotional drama, Susan's latest victory adds more rivalry, and the returning character delivers one of the episode's biggest surprises. But beneath all the chaos is a much darker idea. The trawler may be winning without even being present. Everyone is terrified of him. Everyone is suspicious. And that fear may be allowing someone else to commit terrible acts without being noticed. Final theory. My theory is simple. The trawler is still the central mystery, but Cha-Cha's fate may not be directly connected to him. Someone with a personal motive could have taken advantage of the dance-off chaos and the trawler's growing reputation to hide their own crime. Meanwhile, the shocking return at the end of the episode could provide the first real opportunity to learn more about what the trawler is actually doing. Episode May 5th therefore be the moment when the story splits into two mysteries: the hunt for the trawler and the hunt for the person hiding behind the trawler's shadow. If that theory is correct, the next episode could completely change who we should be suspicious of. What do you think? Did the trawler really strike again in episode 5, or is someone else responsible for what happened to Cha-Cha? And what does that shocking return mean for the investigation? Drop your theories in the comments, and subscribe for more of the Shards recaps, reviews, theories, and ending explained videos.